Sometimes when the fishing is difficult, which tends to be a lot of the time, it's paying attention to the little details that can make all the difference. We all hope that when we head out on the lake that fish hit on every cast and we can throw a multitude of lures and it doesn't matter where we go, but reality often sets in and that is not always the case. Well, today we went all the way up towards Ely, Minnesota, and we're fishing on some of the lakes up here, and we were hoping to get on a really good drop shot smallmouth bite. That was my plan coming up. But of course, that didn't happen. So what we've broken down over the last couple days we've been here is that both largemouth and smallmouth are on wood that is on a rocky shoreline, and it has to drop off into water, 10 to 12 foot of water, pretty quickly, so a fairly steep bank. If there's just rock, no bites. If it's a muck bank with wood, no bites. It has to be wood, rock, and it has to be a fairly steep shoreline. And this is really, really clear water up here. As a matter of fact, one of the areas that we checked yesterday, we found just a ton of smallmouth beds. They had just come off the beds and they were still a couple roaming around up there. But for the most part, they've abandoned those flat areas, but yet we are still able to find them fairly shallow. As a matter of fact, just a little bit ago, we caught some fish, nice largemouth, that were, you know, in less than 2 foot of water in this ultra clear water up here, even though it is the end of June. But we're going to show you some of the cover and the structure that we had to isolate and to locate. And as you can see down the shoreline, you know, up here in the North Woods, we've got lots of trees that have fallen down into the water, but not all of these trees are created equal. They have to be on a very, very rocky shoreline, and you would think that up here that every shoreline is rocky, but that is not the case. And then the other real key ingredient is, you can see here I'm sitting in about 17 foot of water. There are several places where it drops off in like 5 foot of water, 6 foot of water, and we are catching some there as well. But definitely the main ingredient seems to be you've got to have that deeper water access, yet the fish are still wanting to sit up pretty shallow. And then the final piece to this puzzle that has made it, you know, it's not super easy, is you have got to make sure that your casts are so very accurate. You can't miss these fish by more than 5 inches, 6 inches. You won't get the bite. You've got to get the lure right up there close. So in a situation like this, where we've got a multitude of laydowns here and in the water and all the way up to right on the shoreline to jutting down into 10 foot of water, you have to hit every piece of that thing. You got to just cast all the way down and really break it down. And then the last couple days, the bite has just been crazy. There's been like zero thump whatsoever. You'll just be fishing your jig or your Texas rig, and then all of a sudden that line just starts to swim. And I don't mean like swim off like we love when it just takes off. It just swims, just, I mean, you may see it move an inch or so, and then you will go ahead and set the hook and there will be a good one there. So it has really been a very difficult bite, a tough bite, but you've got to key in on this stuff. You've got to really pay attention when the bite is tough. It's super easy to get zoned out when the bite is really difficult and just go into the motions and be like, oh, maybe it'll be better this evening, maybe it'll be better tomorrow. But you've just got to really mentally tough through it and pay attention. Okay, where did that bite come from? Can I replicate that situation? Where did my next bite come from? And over time, you will start to put together what is going on. Now, I know, of course, with fishing, that could change. I'm sitting back in kind of a protected little bay or a pocket right now, but the wind is really ripping out there on the main lake. It started in the last hour or so. So I'm thinking, well, maybe I'll get onto a spinnerbait bite. At least I will try. But you've got a matter of fact, we just had a smallmouth jump right up here right now. You may have heard it. Had to be less than 6 inches of water. This particular lake up here, and a lot of them up here in the North Woods, there are just crawfish everywhere. I mean, thousands and thousands of crawfish. So a fish that might be, you know, let's say only a pound, pound and a half somewhere else, you know, could be pushing 2.5, 3 pounds up here. Their bellies are just busted over with crawfish. So that has been real important as well for us to try to mimic what is going on. And the crawfish, depending on the bottom composition, have had very different colorations. In the portions of the lake where it was silted, a muck bottom, a real silty bottom, they're almost white, but the crawfish in those areas are spending most of the time down under that silt, and then as the boat comes through there, it spooks them out, and then they will scoot on down the bottom of the lake. But they're very, very white. But when you are fishing these areas that have got more good rock cover, the crawfish have got a fair amount of a dark orange, kind of a deep orange in them, and some dark green, and it's real easy up here to match the forage. We've had a video on that I can link to, but it's real easy because there's so many animals up here that just absolutely feast on these crawfish. When you go onto docks and boat ramps, you'll just see pieces of crawfish all over the place that have been eaten. So you can really take a look at them and see what the coloration is. And this one here is actually a structure bug, Bama bug, and you can see here how it's got both that orange and green in there. And we've been using jigs as well, small little 1/4 ounce jigs, but the Texas rig is, we've kind of decided to go with this because we're just getting stuck a lot with this type of cover. We just get hung up all the time, so we've decided to go with the Texas rigs as opposed to the jig in this particular situation, although the jig was catching them really well also. But when you run across those days where you're thinking, man, I should probably just put the boat on the trailer because it's tough, those are the days where I really believe that we grow the most as an angler. When it's just an active bite, it's a blast, don't get me wrong, but we don't really grow a whole lot as an angler. We don't make sure our casting is accurate. We don't always try to really decipher what is happening on the body of water. So you got to take the positives out of the tough days because it will make you a better angler down the road for sure. You'll be able to pull back from that history as you run across those conditions later on and figure out things quicker. If you would like to check out the video about matching a forage, go ahead and check this one out right here. And I think you'll find it interesting how different forage can look from the perspective of a bass. And hey, don't forget to go out and encourage someone today. You never know how you might just change their life. For the Bass Fishing Life, I'm your host, Steve Rogers.